Welcome to the Property Unleashed with me, Mark Fitzgerald. And today I have a special guest. I do enjoy these special guests. Nigel Pinder is joining me. Now, Nigel has a property investing company called NKB Property Solutions and is predominantly a serviced accommodation provider. So welcome to the show, Nigel. Great to have you on.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Thank you.
Good. Now, normally I would do a big intro and have a read out your bio and everything like that, but I thought I'd try something new today. So I'm just going to let you tell us all about yourself.
Okay, fine. Yeah, okay. That's cool. I guess where do I start? If I'm honest, I think I am very similar to an awful lot of people out there who've had a corporate role for a period of time and for a variety of reasons are looking for something new, something different. And you know, probably all got our different reasons, and we probably all get to that point at a different time. But yeah, essentially I've had a background, I would say perhaps not too dissimilar to yours, Mark, and I think I share very similar values to yourself, particularly around, you know, family and the importance of that, and looking, you know, in terms of when you think about what is your why, I think, you know, family is high, top of the list for me, as I know it is for yourself as well. But yeah, I've had a long, fairly successful corporate career. I qualified as an accountant way back in my early 20s, and worked in banking, investment banking and finance for a large part of that time since. And for the most part, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a good career. It's been a rewarding career. I'm not gonna shy away from that. But sometimes it can be a bit of a blessing and a curse, in that when you then think, okay, I'd quite like to maybe try something new, or maybe I've reached a point where I'm not jumping out of bed in the morning. You know, when you've got a good income to replace, it's quite difficult to maybe make that jump, to switch from one thing to another. And you know, I've probably had that at the back of my mind for several years now. I think I reached a point career-wise where, you know, I know that I'm not necessarily going to progress to that next step. I've reached a bit of a level, a bit of a plateau. But I think the real drive for me is family, as I touched upon. And I think probably if I turn the clock back sort of 18 months, 2 years ago, I was actually having a lot of challenges myself personally, a lot of mental health challenges, whereby I really wasn't happy in myself. I was finding that my self-confidence, my self-worth were very low. And, you know, a significant contributor to that was my career, you know, and not feeling that I was enjoying it, you know, massively, but ultimately that I'm spending an awful lot of time trading time for money, not enjoying it, not having as much to show at the end of it as I would want. And it, you know, it just kind of gradually chips away, and it was really bringing me down. You know, and I found myself in a position, I remember it well, actually, that I think the real turning point for me was, I was away for a weekend with my wife and our young daughter. And on the Sunday, we were at a water park, a splash park. It was brilliant on the Sunday, having a great day. But like a cloud came over me on the sun. You know, we all get slight blues on a Sunday sometimes, you know, going back, if you're in that corporate role, going back to the Monday 9 to 5. And it was like a wall in front of me. And I said to my wife in the middle of a splash park, I can't go to work tomorrow. I just can't do it. You know, I just can't face it. And I said, you know, and she's like, it's okay, you know, have a day off, give yourself some time. And a day turned to 2 days, and it turned to a week. And I just needed that time just to sort of step back, almost reassess where I was at, what I was doing, why I was doing it. And whilst I have continued in that corporate role, and to this day I'm still in that very role, but it just made me sort of, I guess, reprioritize and refocus and think, well, okay, what do I want both now and also, longer term? I could say I'm 45 years old. I like to think of myself more as 45 years young, in that, I've still got an awful lot of time, to be working, to be contributing. And I want to be enjoying that time. But equally, I want to be looking after my family, both now and in the future. So, property had always been at the back of my mind. Like so many of us, I've enjoyed watching all the property programs down the years, whether or not it's Phil and Kirsty or Sarah Beanie or the daytime ones when I'm meant to be working from home, but I've secretly got on in the background. I've always enjoyed those. And again, like a lot of people, I've thought I can do that. I'd like to do that. But a lot of what you see on these programs is, people buying at auction, buying from their own savings, and I was like, I don't really know how I can. How can I get into it? And as I said, I've had a corporate role, which I've been very fortunate has given me a good income on a monthly basis. And I couldn't just walk away from that. So income and cash flow was, certainly something that I needed to consider as a very high up my priority list. So I was like, well, okay, whilst it started off as how can I earn sufficient income as quickly as possible to maybe enable me to sort of change or walk away from my day job, I kind of soon realized, okay, take a step back. You kind of got to do this in the right way, a professional way. And I think, as you've touched upon many a time, you've got to build a business. The last thing I want is to just literally do something on the side and end up juggling all the balls, which, I'm probably slightly still in that position right now. But it was just over a year ago, I kind of thought, okay, rent to rent and serviced accommodation especially are two areas, two strategies that I'm interested in. I can look to pursue. And I can get going now. There was nothing other than, what's between my ears stopping me from starting. It took me a while to get to that point. I ruled out things like deal sourcing because as much as they can bring some immediate cash flow, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And once you've got that fee, you've got to do it all over again. So, there's that pressure, ongoing pressure, unless you've got any other regular income coming in. So went around in a few circles, really, but realised that rent to rent, serviced accommodation were two things that I could get going on, and I was interested in. So I started on that journey in about January, February of last year, and it was April time. I was fortunate enough to get my first unit, a local company that I reached out to. Had a property that ticks all the boxes, and I was able to get my first property in April time, and gradually over the course of last year, I built that up to what's now 5 units. Got my 5th unit just before Christmas, and out of interest, the 5th unit is actually with the same landlord that I got my first one with. So I'm obviously doing something okay, because they were more than happy to sign another contract and hand the keys over again. So got 5 units. They range from a 2-bed apartment up to a 5-bed house. And predominantly, I'm targeting the contractor market. And my mindset on that initially was very much, well, you can go for the leisure market, you can go for the sort of weekend guests, but there's 2 nights in a weekend. There's sort of 5 nights in the rest of the week. Surely you want to get that balance right. And contractors is the market that I predominantly target. And thankfully, it's going incredibly well. I'm not going to lie. I'm very pleased with how it's going. In fact, January, which we're just coming out of, which is quite often a struggle for a lot of people in serviced accommodation. It's a quieter time of the year. All 5 of my units were full. 4 of them with 100% bookings, contractors throughout the whole month, and the 5th one just on a Monday to Friday basis. So I had the weekends free, but overall across all the units, I was I'm chuffed with how that is at this moment. And I know that that's not a promise for how it's going to be moving forward. It's going to go through waves and peaks and troughs. But I feel I've set something up which has started really well, and I think I see this as the beginning for me to open up hopefully lots of other opportunities within property, both to have a business that brings in regular income, but also build wealth, build legacy moving forward, both for myself, for my wife and our children. So that I was going to say in a nutshell. That was a very big nutshell, but that is essentially me in terms of how I've come to be where I am right now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that as well, because I think there's a lot of people that are out there and have been where you were and where I was, where you do have the day job, you have a decent income coming in, and you feel trapped because you think to yourself, well, I could try and get another job, but I don't really want another job. I want more time freedom. I want to be spending time with the people that I love and doing something that I'm passionate about. And I think a lot of us as well in corporate, for me, at the beginning of my corporate career, it was exciting. It was good. It was nice working your way up the ladder, but you do hit those sort of ceilings where you think to yourself, this is probably about as much as I could do in this company, in this organization. I would have to move on. But do I really want to just continue that rat race? And I said for 5 years, realistic. I mean, I had 16 years in what I was doing. And I think for 5 years of those, I was a bit lost. I was a shadow of who I am now. With the passion and wanting to get out there and everything. And of course, what you built has now given you choices as well. It does give you that side income. And of course, it is noisy. Everything you start is hard work. It is noisy, blood, sweat, and tears. I always say plenty of tears, plenty of blood as well. But you will get there as long as you persevere and you surround yourself with the right things. So, I mean, congratulations as well on your 5th unit. That is superb. So you've got a good portfolio there, and it's all about bringing in a bit of cash flow and then, of course, building up that property portfolio for yourself. So, at the moment, are you still working?
Yeah, so I am still working. Still got that corporate role. I'm fortunate enough, I think that, as with a lot of us in the kind of current environment, I get to work from home a lot of the time. I can work remotely, and ultimately I can spread the work over the course of a day a little bit. So I am able to sort of keep the serviced accommodation properties kind of, if I need to attend to them, if I need to do anything, I'm able to juggle both balls at the moment. But the long-term plan is obviously build up things on the property side so that I can walk away from that. But it's all about timing. It's about doing that in the right way. And I think if I turn the clock back X amount of months, I thought, well, okay, if I get to a certain amount of units or a certain cash flow, maybe I can then, that cash flow will be sufficient to enable me to walk away. That will replace my income. However, in building up a cash flow, I'm also building a business. And when building a business, you have to reinvest in so what I'm trying to do at the moment is any cash flow that is coming from the serviced accommodation, might get reinvested into a new unit, or hopefully builds up a buffer for the periods, unlike January, that were successful. Maybe some of the quieter months when maybe things don't go quite to plan. So I think that kind of what was a plan of giving me the option to leave the corporate role, perhaps sooner rather than later. I'm just maybe sort of just trying to be sensible about that. Because I can carry on with some. And I think you just mentioned a couple of words. You sort of said you're a shadow of yourself. You felt a little bit lost, and if I turn the clock back, I was definitely like that. I think getting involved in property, getting these number of units going, it's given me a real boost, given me a real injection, which I think I can take back into the day job, because I can recognize, okay, this isn't everything, I'm doing this, and I can try and make the most of it. And, in the most part, it's absolutely fine. It really is. But I think it's trying to have that perspective on it. And I think getting involved in property and seeing other doors potentially open, other options further down the line, I think has just given me that wider perspective, which is important because, as I said, it was impacting me heavily in my my day-to-day life. And you don't want to bring any negative thoughts, feelings, emotions from work back home into your family life, because that's not fair on your family. It's not what you want to do. So yeah, still got the day job, but I'm seeing other options opening up ahead of me.
But there's nothing wrong with that, because as I say to a lot of people myself now, if you want to build a property business alongside your full-time job, and I know people that are staying their full-time jobs because they actually enjoy them. I mean, what's that all about at the end of the day? But some people but it is the options. It just means that if something happened, or you God forbid or whatever, were made redundant or something like that, it's like, holy moly, I'm not just out on my ear. I've got something working for me, and it's quite nice. It's a nice feeling to have. But it also gives, from my perspective, it gave me a purpose when I started in the property thing, because I was always thinking, I want to start something. I want my own business. What should I do? I've got to reinvent something. But then when I actually started getting down it, and very much the same as you, everybody sees you're picking up all these properties. And of course you are making money, but you're then reinvesting that money on more properties, on building the properties and things like that. Now, I took voluntary redundancy, so I had to take some of the money. So it really was a case that I had to really watch what I was doing, which is why I predominantly went for the HMOs, because they were, I was going for properties that were already set up. I didn't have to put a level of money into, serviced accommodation. A lot of the times, you've got to dress things. You've got to make it extra special at the end of the day. So it does take that reinvestment. But of course, it's not necessarily an investment that's coming, I say, out of your pocket. It's coming out of your business. Your business is just basically reinvesting in itself. And if you don't have to take a wage from that, you can potentially, like momentum investing, build your business quicker, can't you?
Exactly that. And, I was in a position that I could, put some money in to begin with. Or access money, be it savings, borrowings, what have you. But the last few units, ultimately, the first 3 units pay for number 4 to be set up. That pays for number 5 to be set up. And that's when you get that momentum. And I've kind of hit the pause button just for a little bit now as we've entered in the new year. January, whilst on the serviced accommodation side, it was thankfully quite quiet. The properties were booked. There weren't a whole heap of issues cropping up, thankfully. But on a personal level and back in the day job, January was very full on. So I kind of hit the pause button. But again, I was able to hit the pause button because it was at a point that, it had that momentum. It's got to that level. But I'm always, looking for the next opportunity, for unit number 6, for the next landlord to, hopefully come knocking. So hopefully sooner rather than later that we'll pick it up again and grow it further.
Well, I think, and I actually think, 2023 is a fantastic time as well, particularly, for property investing, because, the market's not as buoyant as it was. So for people that know what they're doing, they can come in here, solve problems with good solutions that can, be a win-win for everybody, of course. So, if there's people with single-let properties and the interest rates, of course, as we know, have gone up and they're coming to the end of the mortgage term or anything, some people are going to think their properties aren't going to make them any money. So it's nice to be able to go and speak to them and say, have you thought about this? And we can do this for you, and you can earn a bit more money and do a better job through the service accommodation, short-term rental sort of market. So, I mean, I always talk about targets and everything, but what is your have you got a target plan or a goal that you want to achieve in this year?
Yeah, I have. I'm not the best for writing kind of goals and plans, be them long term or short term, and it's one of many areas that I really need to improve on. But I did scribble some down the other day, and as I touched upon, I'm 45 now, so I don't know why, but I had this sort of like, let's think, what is 4.5 years? I thought I reached 50 in 4.5 years. Where do I want to be then? And also, where bring it back. Where do I want to be? Maybe by the end of this year. So it was almost easier to write the sort of longer term goals than it was to sort of to bring it back and think, well, okay, what about 2023? Where do I want to be? But as I said, I want to grow the service accommodation business. As I said, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself with numbers in terms of this amount of 1,000 a month or that amount of number of units, but I just want to see it grow. I want to have all of the systems and processes in place whereby you know, whether or not it's 5 units or 10 or 12 or 15, it doesn't become too much more of a burden or an ask on me. But ultimately, by growing it in the right way, that gives me, or it gives from a business point of view, it gives, the regular income, and hopefully that will then enable me to spend more time, more focus on the actual the ownership piece, whereby I can hopefully build up a portfolio, and got a whole heap of thoughts in my mind. I'm having to be careful of shiny penny syndrome at the moment, I'll be honest, but I want to I want to get into things like buy, refurb, refinance. Commercial property is an area which I've started to look into. I think there's some good opportunities there, particularly if I do things like, you use money currently sort of locked away in my pension. If I use that in a smart way, I think there's a number of opportunities available to me. So I've kind of got a 4 or 5 year plan that is roughly taking shape. And I think what that means for me this year is, just improve the processes and the efficiencies within the serviced accommodation business, but keep it growing. And we'll see where that leads to. And as I said, I've got some numbers around that, but I almost don't want to put too much pressure on myself by calling them out loud in front of everyone.
Put them out there, put them into the universe. At the end of the day, make them happen.
Maybe
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's I think 10K a month is, I think, the sort of cash flow target that, if you talk to a lot of people, that seems to be the one that a lot of people have. I'm not at that point, far from that point with the 5 units that I've got, but I see that as being achievable this calendar year. I see that as being achievable within 2023. And again, what I think that will really do is open up other opportunities. So that's, I would say, target number 1 for this year is increase the SA business to get to 10K a month cash flow. If I can do that, I think that will open up other doors. And as I said, even if I haven't got anything else in place come the end of the year in terms of sort of ownership and other properties, I'd like to have some sort of wheels in motion. So that's really what I'm looking to do.
That's great. Love it. Absolutely love it. You got to have a vision. You got to have some goals to go for at the end of the day, and you have, which is superb. And of course, those pesky shiny pennies get everywhere. And I must admit that even when I was fully blown getting into my rent-to-rent business and building it, there were shiny pennies everywhere, and I was looking at all sorts of things. And I've always said it. My wife said to me, just focus on one thing, Mark, because she is a steel, she is a lord when it comes to things. And I'm not, I'm all blaze. Yeah. So, I'm all over the place. And she was just like, focus on one thing, nail it, and then go and do what you want. And now we're finally out. I'm actually a year behind my 5-year plan, but I can blame COVID for that, because we lost a year, didn't we, at the end of the day. Yeah. So this year now, we are out there now doing, renovations, refurbishments. We're building up the portfolio. We're looking at doing some commercial units and things like that. And those are all the things that I've wanted to do since I started getting into property. But I needed the cash flow first. I needed that stability, and I needed to systemize it, pretty much like what you're looking at doing now. Systemizing it, put the moving parts into place so that it's not a full-time job, but it brings in money. It works really, really well. And then it means that you've got the time freedom to go off and do those other projects. So I think that's truly superb. And
I think there's an awful lot of similarities there in terms of, as you said, your journey and what you chose to do first for all of the right reasons. I can empathize pretty much word for word, I think, with what you just said. And I'm playing a little bit of catch up, but let's hope I'll be following that path before too long.
Well, I always say you're never behind. You're where you need to be at the end of the day. Because if I was actually further forward, I'd have started doing this in my 20s. But I didn't even. I wouldn't even have the mindset to do it then. I was a completely different person, and I always say it. My mother even says to me now. She says, "You're so chatty now. You're always. I'm not always, but you're happy. You know what I mean. You've always got stuff going on." She says, I go and I try and have a weekly coffee with my mum because I never had that before. Do you know what I mean? So it's nice to take her out, take her for a coffee and things like that. And of course, we talk about what I'm doing, and I probably talk more in the conversation than she does, bless her. But then I'm doing more. But she says, "Oh, it's so exciting! I love listening to what you're doing, and things that you're putting into place and stuff like that." So it is a different world. But anyway, let's get back on track here. I'm getting all sidelined. So I mean, just taking you back to where you were, you were struggling a bit. And of course, what I would say is, I mean, I was in the same boat, and it takes quite a big leap of faith, I suppose, in yourself to be able to say, right, put a stake in the ground. I'm now going to go and start a property business. I am going to do it alongside my job, but at the end of the day, you're committing to do something. Our minds play tricks on us and says, well, what happens if you fail? What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? From your perspective, then, how did you manage to sort of overcome that and take that step?
It wasn't easy. And, to this day, certain challenges, certain issues will crop up and do crop up. And, it doesn't, become easy, but you find ways and tools and ways of adapting. But yeah, I think, as I said, it got to a point where I knew something had to change, and I knew I had to change it. And I've always been in the professional sense, in the career sense, I've always been very I've been confident, in myself, in my own abilities, and I was doing well from a young age. But I found that, I wasn't. Suddenly, that confidence was gone. I was having lots of self-doubt. I was, it was very. My mind really was playing tricks on me, to the point, I was struggling to, I say go into work, whether or not it's working remotely or being in the office, but every day was becoming a real struggle. And I was doubting myself and my own ability, which, I'd never done before. So I knew I needed to change it. I knew I needed to look for, a new opportunity. Because it was impacting my family life, basically, and that's first and foremost what I don't want it to be doing. I want to be, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, and I want to be doing all the good things that come with that. So last year when I set up the property company, which at the time I wasn't sure which direction it was going to go. I knew there were options, I knew there were avenues that I could explore, but I wasn't. When I set it up, I wasn't sure which road I would go down. I explored a few, and initially I was finding it very hard to get things going whilst also doing the day job. It's like, I've got family stuff going on, I've got day job stuff going on. How do I commit the time and the effort to actually get this business up and running? Really, really tough. And probably less than a year ago, sort of February, March time, I was close to saying, can't do it. Or not that I can't do it, but let me just put it on the back burner. I'll come back to it when I've got more time, and that whole when I've got more time, it's like, well, every day's got 24 hours in. It's how you choose to use them. So I was very close to saying, well, no, let's leave it for now. But thankfully, I had some support around me, obviously my family, but I had some other key individuals who sort of gave me some help and support at the time, that I kept going. And I think getting that first unit, as it was for a lot of people, that was like, okay, well, maybe this could actually work. And it gave me like I said, a real injection of confidence, I think, to carry on, and it kind of snowballed from there, almost to the point that I had to sort of rein it in a little bit. And it was my wife who, that sort of the two devils on your shoulder. My wife was the one who was sort of slowing it down, sort of saying, rein it in a little bit. Don't get a second unit until the first one's working, or in terms of what areas that you might look at. Don't go to new areas because how do you know that will work? So try to manage it all in a sensible time frame, and I think that's helped, and I think that was probably necessary given the day job that I'm still doing at the same time. And I think equally, as I'm, for yourself, for a lot of people talk about, why do you do it? Well, financial freedom, time freedom. I was also very mindful that, I'm doing this for financial freedom, for time freedom. I want my time to be my own so that I can, use it in a way that I want to, with family, doing the valuable, the fun things. I didn't therefore want to lose every ounce of time that I've got in the short term just to, work on that longer term. So for some people, I would say that is completely the way to go. You've got to really put the effort in. You've got to put the time in now, for the future. But I didn't want to lose every evening, every weekend, be it on viewings or setting up properties. And trust me, I lost a fair few, but I tried to maintain that balance throughout, and I think that balance is key. And yeah, I think I've got it about right. So yeah, we'll try and maybe take that approach moving forward, I think.
That's great. I mean, they're brilliant, aren't they, wives? Absolutely brilliant. I remember my wife, I was sat in the car, I was driving, it'd been a year since I'd started my property business, and she just turned to me and she just said, "You just remember you have got a family that love you." And I still kicks me that. But I didn't have to say anything to that. I was just like, yeah, I understand that, because it's take your foot off the gas. What are you doing this for? I know I get caught up and I get passionate about what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But I got so caught up and passionate about it that, I almost forgot why I was actually, and the reason I was doing it was the people that were in the car with me. Do you know what I mean? And I'm here, there, and everywhere, missing everything. Thinking, again, like I did in the corporate world, I'm doing a good job because I'm providing for my family. I'm building a legacy piece. I'm out there doing it all. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to thank me at the end of it all and say, "It was great, Dad, when you weren't there, but at least, you provided for us." They're going to say, "Why weren't you there, Dad?" You know what I mean? Where were you when I was playing basketball? Where were you when I got an award? You know what I mean? And those are the traits. And that's what I've realized myself over the last 3 years. Those are the moments that are priceless. You can't put a price on those. You could give me £1 million now, but if you said to me I couldn't ever go and watch my kids playing basketball or doing any of their activities or anything, I don't care about the money. It's about being around the people, isn't it? And I think that's massive. And
wholeheartedly. Yeah, I've got 3 children. I've got 2 teenage children who they live with their mum predominantly, but are with us each week as well. And I missed out on quite a lot when they were growing up, when they were younger, because and times were different, perhaps, in terms of there wasn't the same flexibility with work in terms of working from home, etc. But I missed out on a number of sports days, parents' evenings, etc., because I was at work. But looking back, how stupid is that? What was I doing at work on that given day that was more important? Absolutely nothing. And it eats away each time. It eats away at you a little bit. But myself and my wife are fortunate enough to have I've got an amazing little 5-year-old daughter. She is just the world to us. And I don't want to miss out on anything with her. It's financial freedom, providing for them in the caveman sense, but time freedom is everything as well. And it was interesting last year, actually. There was, and I think it was one of those moments, a bit of a light bulb moment, that this really could work, when we were fortunate enough, I think, post-COVID, everything else, we hadn't had a proper holiday for a couple of years, as a lot of people hadn't. And we were on our first proper holiday for a long time. We went to Greece. It was a fantastic holiday. Whilst we were there, I just had the one unit. Only the first unit was set up. But whilst I was away, had a few messages, had a few inquiries, went back to them on the phone, had some bookings come in, actually saw some money come into the account whilst I was away. And it was like, this could work, It's like, this is actually running. This is happening. And this was before I had any clever processes in place. This was literally unit number 1. But cash flow was coming in. Queries were being answered remotely whilst I'm on holiday with my wife and our daughter. And that maybe made me think, keep going. This could work, It's not just a crazy notion.
No, it is. It's lovely that, and it's the fruits of your labor, as the old saying goes, because it is. You built this, you put this together, you've gone out there and got the deals, and I think it's remarkable, and this is why I always say to everybody, when it comes to property investing, if you know what you're doing and you go out there and do things in the right way, it's very easy to lose money if you don't know what you're doing or you're given the wrong advice. But if you know what you're doing, you can go out there and you can make a profitable business. You've just got to work at it and not quit. Because there are landlords, there are people, there are agents out there that do want to work with people. They just don't know about you yet. So you've got to get out and scream from the rafters, so to speak, and build that business. So you got your first unit in April. And then I think about October time, you came and joined us on the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder program. So what made you want to come and join us when you were already set up? You already had serviced accommodation units.
Yeah, I think when I joined you guys, I had 4 units that has subsequently grown to 5. But it was reaching a point where I needed to systemize. I needed to put better processes in place, but I also needed to make some key business decisions that perhaps I hadn't given due consideration to up until that point. So it was another moment of hit pause, before you get too big too quick and it gets too much for you. And as you said, it's easy to lose money as well if you don't do things the right way. Hit the pause button and just make sure you're doing these things right. And some of my peer group had previous dealings with you, so I was aware of yourself, Mark, and what you were doing personally, what you were helping others with, and I suddenly saw you kind of getting involved in this SA space, and was fortunate enough to be free on the one evening when you were kind of giving a little bit of a bit of a demo to people and talking about it, and introducing Graham as well, who there's a lot of people out there who will claim to be experts, who will claim to know everything, but actually scratch the surface a little bit more. Maybe they're not quite the experts that they would lead you to believe. Whereas Graham, his level of experience and the detail and the depth that he's happy and prepared to go into, that became clear and obvious to me straight away, literally in the space of an hour and a half session. So it was like, okay, this, sometimes things seem to happen and you think, this is the right time. It's happening for a reason here. I need to hit the pause button and actually make sure I'm doing things right. So got involved with yourself. Between yourself and Graham, you've offered a lot of help and support in the months since then, and it's good to know, just good to have that kind of go-to person, isn't it? That that you will get a right, an honest answer based on experience and knowledge, and it was the right time to get involved. So we had a call last night. There was a lot of people on it at various levels of, their journey, wasn't there? Some from real newbies looking to get going to some, established people, looking for some, for their next big exciting step. But I think having that support, having that framework, I knew it was needed. I felt there were gaps, and I just wanted to kind of fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, no. I think and you're right with Graham and everything. I mean, myself, done an essay myself, but I don't class myself as a serviced accommodation expert. I am doing it. I am living and breathing it, but I'm still relatively green around the gills to it. So that is why I teamed up with somebody like Graham, because I'm exactly the same as you. When I met Graham, and I've known Graham a couple of years now, and I know, he's got a massive serviced accommodation business. We're talking 140 odd units and growing all the time. That sort of level of expertise, systemization, and he's not running around. He's in Kenya at the moment, and he did the group coaching.
Exactly.
Kenya, with monkeys playing in the garden of the villa that he's staying in, or a hotel that he's staying in. Phenomenal, because he was struggling for Wi-Fi, wasn't he? But he was still committed, and he was still there. And like I say, his business is still working for him in the background with all the units he's got. And it's just, you just have a conversation with him, and you're like, wow, this guy lives and breathes it and knows it. And like you say, whether you're a seasoned serviced accommodation provider trying to take it to the next level, or you're a complete and utter newbie looking to get started, he caters for you, doesn't he? I mean, we're both there helping and supporting and everything, but the level of expertise, you know, he remembers where he was when he started, and equally, he'll help you systemize your business and get there now. So, I mean, I'm absolutely loving being a part of it as well, because I always say every day's a learning day. And if you think you know everything, then, you know, who do you think you are at the end of the day? So it's really there to help systemize and build, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think last night's call was a prime example. You know, I think, I don't know, I didn't count how many people there were on it, but, you know, a large number of people joined at varying stages of their journey. And, you know, I didn't actually have loads. I didn't really have any questions or any kind of nagging things to go through with Graham myself last night. So I was very much an observer and a listener. But what you get from that, you get little bits, because someone asks a question, you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't sure on that one actually, or maybe something that you thought you were doing right. Someone will ask a question, have a chat, and Graham will say, well, why aren't you doing this? And you're like, and it makes you maybe slightly just reassess or tweak what you've got. And so last night's call, I thought, was a prime example of that. You know, I think myself, the 5 deals that I've got to this point have all been direct to vendor. I've had a lot, and again, a lot of it comes back to confidence. You know, there's a lot about mindset. I felt a lot more confident reaching out to landlords, talking to them directly. And trust me, I've had a lot of no's and sort of hands in the face, but I felt more confident dealing with the landlords one-to-one than I have walking into a letting agent and saying, this is me, this is what I do. So excuse that. So I've, so on last night's call, I think Cindy mentioned about the success she's had through a letting agent with hopefully her first deal coming up. And, you know, she spoke around how she'd approached 20 agents and the confidence that she went in with. And it's almost like, yeah, whilst you could say I'm ahead of her in that journey. I've got 5 units. She's looking for a first, but she's actually, you know, she's got her, you know, relationships building with letting agents in a way that I haven't yet. So I think you know, even at various stages of the journey, we can learn from each other. And, you know, that was definitely something that I got from last night's call.
Yeah, no, I thought it was brilliant as well. There's loads of people that, you know, have deals now or on a crest of getting their deals through. So it's all exciting stuff. And as Graham and myself say all the time, you know, if you're winning, we're winning, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to help you do things. But it also does surprise me, and it shouldn't do, but it does. The amount of people that start our training and then say, bloody hell, there's a lot to serviced accommodation, isn't there? I didn't think there was as much. Yeah. Because we've broken it down and systemized it in such a manner that, it, you know, it is step-by-step process, hand-holding. But there's so many people that must be out there then, because I don't know, I don't really look at anybody else on what they're doing. But so many people out there are not giving you the full picture that that we are. And we're showing you everything. This is what you need to be a systemized business. And we'll show you warts and all, because you need to know these things. Otherwise, you know, later on down the line, you could run yourself into a lot of trouble, couldn't you?
Oh, completely. And, you know, and that was the point that I was at when, you know, when I joined. You know, the business had been running a little while. The number of properties were growing. You know, but issues like VAT, you know, we all raise our eyebrows, but it's like, that's a key business decision that, you know, you need to make. You're going to reach that threshold. You need to set yourself up, you know, with the right structure. And it's not necessarily one size fits all as well. You know, depending on what you want to do now, moving forward, you know, what might be the right answer for me might not be the right answer for someone else. But to get that advice, to get that support, as you said, that's the real kind of under the bonnet stuff, which not everyone is either wanting to or able to get into. But yeah, that's where the value add comes from. And yeah, it's not just about get a property, put it on Airbnb and sit back and watch the money come in. There's a little bit more involved to that. You know, I think we all recognise whatever aspect of property that we're in, that phrase passive income is nice, but it's not true in many cases.
No, I mean, I must say, I don't think there's much passive about property, full stop. There is still work that
Mm.
needs to be done. Whether you're managing it yourself or not, you're still
Yeah,
going to have a hand in what's happening and things like that there. But again, another thing that was brought up on a coaching call was linen. Where can we store
oh
the
yeah, yeah,
linen and stuff like that to make it systemized? And it's things like that that you don't always think about, do you? You've got to have lots of different
yeah,
sets of bedding for one to be washed, one to be in the property, one to be ready to rock and roll. But where do you
yeah.
stash it all and where do you store it all? So it was great to see Graham sort of go through the solutions and how he's built that up himself as well.
Yeah, and little example like that, where where you kind of sort of start to, you get a little good nugget of information was last night. Obviously, a couple of people kind of questioned on the linen front, and they were talking about cleaners as well. And I'll be honest, Mark, at that point I was sitting there quite smug. I thought, I've got a really good cleaning company who take care of my linen. They're doing a good job. I'm paying for it, but they're doing a good job. And yeah, I've not got any problems, thanks very much. And then Graham threw in that, well, actually, maybe you don't, as you grow, maybe you don't want to have just one cleaner or just one cleaning company, because they've kind of got you over a little bit of a barrel. You can't, it's that key man dependency almost, isn't it? In that if suddenly, they're a company, it doesn't matter if one of them falls ill. That's why I've engaged with them. They will be responsible, in the case of illness and what have you. But if they suddenly decide to put their prices up to a big level, or if they suddenly decide the business isn't for them, that will impact all of my units. So whereas I was quite smug thinking I've got this cleaning and linen lark sorted, it actually made me think, okay, maybe I do need to sort of just take a step back, reassess that, or certainly reassess it if I grow with more units. And again, it only comes from knowledge such as Graham, but also input from the other from the other people on the call as well.
Yeah, from the community. Well, I'm conscious of your time, and I know it's always great to chat and everything. And I like to ask people a few questions and stuff at the end for a bit of a sneaky thing. So if that's all right with you, I've just got some quick fire questions to ask you.
Oh, these are the ones that I probably should have listened to your other podcasts a bit closer and got an idea of what's coming. But no, this is rough and ready. Go for it.
Let's do it. So what's the best advice you've been given?
Oh, it really is a tricky one, that. I think the one that I don't think it's advice that one particular person has given me, but I think a bit of a statement, is it a mantra? I'm not sure, but I think the phrase "work to live, don't live to work" for me is kind of key, because I think for many years, I was almost living to work, or work was the sort of number one sort of priority for me. And that comes back to things like time freedom, doesn't it? But yeah, that for me, I think is key. And I think you can take it in a number of ways. I think it comes back to enjoying what you're doing. If you're, if work becomes too much of a chore and a burden, you're not enjoying it. Well, yeah, it becomes tough. So I think, work to live, so that ultimately it kind of gives you that freedom. It gives you the time to do what you want. I think that would perhaps be something that I would come back to.
Very nice. If you could sit down and have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would you like to sit down and chat to?
Yeah, I might cheat a little bit on here. I might. I think one of those people I might actually go for 2, if I may. And it's an easy, obvious answer for me, but it's a very personal one, in that neither my mum or my dad are around anymore. Haven't been for a while. So yeah, if I could have both my mum and dad back for dinner, yeah, nice. I've got lots I'd like to show them, tell them about their grandchildren, and a whole heap of questions and advice I'd be looking to get from my dad. That's what dads are for. So yeah, if I can cheat, and if I can make mum and dad one person, who else would I have? I think sport has always been a huge passion of mine. Growing up, I loved I actually love snooker. That was one of the biggest things I got into when I was really young. And so I grew up loving the likes of Steve Davis and Jimmy White. But I think for the last 20 or so years, Ronnie O'Sullivan has just been a real hero. I just, if he's playing, he's on the telly, I just can't take my eyes off of it. And my wife can't possibly understand how I could sit and watch snooker for an hour. I mean, where's the excitement in that? But for me, what he can do with a snooker cue is lost. You know, he can play left-handed and right-handed. You wouldn't notice the difference. I think he's amazing. And yeah, he's a real character with it. So I think, yeah, maybe Ronnie O'Sullivan would be one. And I think I'll actually carry on the sport theme as well for me, because yeah, football is always a passion of mine. You might not like this answer, Mark, because I think you support a red team from Manchester, whereas I supported another red team from the Northwest. But yeah, I think whilst there's a number of players, past and present, I could choose. Jurgen Klopp of the Liverpool manager is just an absolute hero of mine. Again, when he talks, I just have to turn the volume up. You know, I quite like it as well when his talks kind of start to sort of stray into everyday life as well, not just about football. So yeah, very much a sport themed answer, I would say, rather than sort of perhaps, you know, business or property people. But yeah, if I could have Jurgen Klopp round the table as well, along with Ronnie O'Sullivan and my mum and dad, that would be quite an interesting dynamic. But I'd certainly have a smile on my face.
That's a great answer, and really quite touching actually as well. So no, it's nice, really, really nice. And I have to say, I got a lot of time for Jurgen Klopp. I think he's a fantastic manager and personality as well. You know, and his way of thinking and things is brilliant. And the way he's built, you know, Liverpool up to what they are. Obviously, they're struggling at the moment, but they'd be stupid if they didn't stick with him and stuff like that, because I think even Ferguson used to say, I'm worried about Liverpool when he joined, because of what he was building and the ethos that he's brought into the team. And, you know, anybody that's involved in business at the end of the day needs to look at how he's done that at Liverpool, because it'll help you grow any business as well.
Well, and I think it's, you know, a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of, you know, the importance of mindset. And, you know, I think some people might have criticised and joked Jurgen Klopp perhaps in his early days, but one of his big statements was all about turning doubters into believers. And, you know, I think that's something that can be related to in any aspect of life. You know, you know, be that sport, be that, you know, business, or be that, you know, purely, you know, your personal life. You know, becoming a doubter into a believer, I think is a good thing. So yeah, I'd enjoy a bit of dinner with Jurgen Klopp. It'd be fun.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Have you got a top 3 podcasts?
That is a tough one. Hand on heart, I do listen to yours perhaps as much or more than anyone else.
I'll take that.
Yeah, number one. No, I think there's an awful lot.
I've got one listener. Come on. Sorry,
I get notifications when you get a new one and everything. No, I think there's an awful lot in the property and business space whereby I'm probably still at that point at the moment of flitting around from one to another, almost trying to find the ones that really kind of talk to me. I will go. I have listened to TED Talks quite a lot and gone back on some of his previous ones. As much as anything, I find him really entertaining. I might not always agree with him or think what he's saying is advice that I can follow, but he's entertaining if nothing else. You know, other than that, probably some, again, non-business related ones, such as I think is it Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe talking about their parenting hell. I find things like that quite amusing and sometimes necessary to sort of take you away from the, you know, so you're not thinking too much in the sort of business sense or what have you. So something, you know, quite amusing like those guys is, you know, appeals to me, certainly.
Brilliant. And have you got a top 3 books?
Again, I think probably the one that if I think about books, both in the sort of business sense and then maybe sort of, you know, outside of business as well, I think the one, I'm not going to give any new answers here. Everyone's going to say, oh yeah, that's obvious. But I think a year or so back, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I hadn't read it before, and it was clearly one that was like, yeah, everyone talks about it, everyone mentions it, so I'm like, I've got to read this. And yeah, it can shift your mindset a little bit. Starts to make you looking at things in a slightly different way, which are abundantly obvious now, but you talk to a number of people, just in terms of about things about like, assets and liabilities and what have you. Yeah, I think that was definitely one which has probably spoke to me more than others. And at the moment, in the area of serviced accommodation, the books, and there are a few books that I'm really dipping in and out of a lot, are actually the books by Mark Simpson and Boostly, who are very much, Mark's worked in serviced accommodation for years, and he's all around taking away the dependency from the OTAs, so that if Airbnb suddenly blocked you, kicked you off next week, it wouldn't be the end of your business. It's all around sort of promoting your own brand, but particularly bringing up direct bookings. And at the moment, I'm reading, I'm not implementing, but it's it's a case of trying to build that knowledge and then start to apply it. So yeah, I think the Boostly stuff by Mark Simpson. Outside of that, in a non sort of business sense, I've never really been one for fiction, if I'm honest. It's just never really spoke to me. But I've always quite liked autobiographies. And again, going back to sport, the two autobiographies that I've probably enjoyed more than any, because I think they've shown how much they're real fighters. There's actually Andre Agassi, his autobiography years back now, but I picked it up a couple of times and reread it. It was phenomenal. And I remember on my honeymoon a few years back reading Luis Suarez autobiography, and he's a proper street fighter. To sort of hear what he'd gone through, the commitment that he had shown to get to the level of, to being the footballer that he has been, was phenomenal. And again, that can be related to no matter what your walk of life. You don't have to be a football fan to actually kind of, I guess, respect that level of commitment. But perhaps it's, not something that, everyone's seen. We all just look at him and think he's a horrible man who bites his opponents. But, he had a tough life before that.
I think it's under the covers, isn't it? Everybody's got their own demons and stuff like that. But of course, being a public figure, that is all you see. But if, he's obviously got his own issues, which is why he's done stuff like that. But it's whether you or not you want to understand those. But no, they're really good picks as well. They're really good picks. Thank you very much. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Nigel. Absolute pleasure. And I mean, just from my perspective, maybe if anybody was thinking of joining the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder with myself and Graham, what would you say to them?
I'd say do it. is the simple, quick answer. And probably what I would back that up with is it's a good decision. It would be a good thing to do no matter where you are at in your SA journey. And what I mean by that is, we've got some people who are literally at the start looking for help to get started. And you guys can offer that, and the community can offer that. It's sometimes it's good I think it's good to be in a community where people are 6 months, 12 months ahead of where you are now, because you can almost try and kind of cling to their coattails a little bit. So I think if you're at the beginning, great. If you're a little bit further ahead, like I was when I joined, I had 4 units, but it gives you that structure and the support that on your own, or trying to get some of the free advice that's out there, you particularly, you might struggle with. And yeah, there are some people on there who are looking to do some really, it's not all just about rent to SA. There are some people looking to sort of buy their own units, looking to take advantage of the tax efficiencies that serviced accommodation offers. And again, that's all areas where Graham's got the experience and he can help. So I think no matter where you're at on your SA journey, it's going to help you and support you, move further forward.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that. That's great stuff. Great. And let me just say, it's great to have you as part of the community as well. And I'm really looking forward to helping you, as is Graham, and supporting you this year and in whatever, your next projects are, or whatever next properties are as well. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, Nigel, what's the best way to find you?
Tell you what, yeah, Didn't discuss that. One of the things I've got to get a lot better on this year is social media. I really don't have a great deal of social media presence. Again, a bit of a confidence thing, really, in terms of putting myself out there. But yeah, you can find me individually, Nigel Pinder, on Facebook. Reach out to me that way. Happy to sort of make some sort of new contacts that way. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way at this point. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, as I say, once again, it's been a great pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, I can have you back in the future when you've got a few more units, or we're doing something a bit different, and check up on you, see how you're getting on. That would be really, really good.
Yeah.
And if you are interested to find out a bit more about the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder, if you head over to thepropertyunleashed.com, you can click on the links there. And of course, we have some free tools and resources for you, as well as more information, or just reach out to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed recording it. Remember, keep focusing on your vision, keep chasing those goals, and I'll see you on the next episode. You take care, and bye for now.